All right, welcome back, everybody, to the show, Retro Life for You. My name is Chris Adams, hosting the show. This week, I have special guest host with me who has been here before, but it's been a few weeks or maybe, I don't know, Tim, month and a half,
A month or two, yeah, something like
month
that.
or two. Tim Williams, he is the host of 80s Flick Flashback. And Tim, if you will, go ahead and say a few things for us about your podcast. Tell us what it's about, and then we'll get into the show, what we're going to do today.
Cool. If you love 80s movies, then you'll love the 80s Flick Flashback podcast. It's a podcast where every other week, or right now about every week, because I'm doing a bunch of bonus episodes, but me and another 80s Flick loving co-host talk about a specific 80s flick, and we'll share first time watch memories, favorite scenes, and even learn some behind the scenes trivia and stories along the way. So that's what we do, and we had a lot of fun doing it. And we actually covered Nightmare on Elm Street 1 last October, so I'm
Yes,
looking
it
forward to
is.
this one.
Good stuff, too. Please check him out, everybody. It is really a fun podcast to listen to. And like he mentioned earlier, we were talking about co hosts and everything. He, like I knew this time around, he has several different people to kind of rotate out co hosts. And so it's like you're always getting a fresh take or something, it seems
Yeah,
like. Somebody
we
else.
try.
This week, yeah. It's all we can do, people. We can try.
Right, exactly.
But we're gonna do Nightmare on Elm Street 1 and 3. I know you're saying they're skipping two, Chris. You're skipping two, but with kind of a unique way here. I'm doing the idea of doing Nancy's story, and Nancy is kind of glossed over a little bit. The second one, they kind of mention her, but in the third one, she reappears
Mm-hmm.
and brings her character back for us. And I was telling somebody else I was doing this, Tim, and they said, "Well, what about the one later down the line where she comes back again?" I said, "Well, no, that's a little bit different because they made that version of Nightmare on Elm Street where she is back and it's like she's making the movie Nightmare on Elm Street,
Right, right.
you know, and Robert Englund is in there playing himself and playing Freddy. It's like you're making a movie within a movie. It's not quite the same thing. This is not a part of Nancy's story,
Mm-hmm.
so a little bit different. But Elm Street 1, I rewatched it partly last night and this morning, and then Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors. Actually, I finished watching it 30 minutes before this podcast ended.
Fresh on your mind.
Hey, it's been a long day, so I had to rush it in. But let's go to the first one to start off with. Heather
Yeah.
Langenkamp plays Nancy Thompson. Her mother and father, uh, Marge Thompson, and what was the dad's name? I know he was a lieutenant.
He was where'd it go? I was
And
looking.
I'm not seeing his name now. Why is that? Anyway, John
Lu-
Saxon plays the
yeah,
role.
Lieutenant Thompson.
We'll call him Lieutenant Thompson. That
That,
sounds good.
that's what
Um,
IMDb says was what I'm going with.
there he is, right there, right in front of me. John
Yep,
Saxon, Lieutenant Thompson, just below Johnny Depp playing
there you
Glenn
go.
Lee. And yes, Johnny Depp was in this movie. For those who are not sure, this is 1984's Nightmare
Yep.
on Elm Street.
His
Robert
first movie
Englund plays
role.
Fred Krueger. Yes, first, and he did quite a good job as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I was sitting there thinking earlier when I was watching this, and once again, not to go off topic like I always do, but Johnny Depp in 21 Jump Street, 21 Jump Street, before or after Elm Street?
After, right?
I, I didn't look it up. I was
I'm about to
going
look it up right now.
I was going to, while you're looking it up, I was going to do this. And I'm thinking he reminds me of the Tom Hansen character in 21 Jump Street with the look that he had in Elm Street. So I'm wondering if it was during the filming of 21 Jump Street, if it was after, before.
Jump Street was after. Excuse me. Jump Street didn't start till 87. So he
Okay.
had done Nightmare on Elm Street. He was in Platoon, a very small role in 86.
Yeah.
And Crybaby. Oh, that's after that. So, yeah. So
Yeah.
Jump Street was 87 to 90.
I think now was Crybaby his first big movie? That was just starring him.
Yes, that was his first starring role. And of course,
Okay.
that was after he became, kind of the heartthrob from Jump
Right.
Street. Yeah.
Right. Right. Well, it's a good little side story here for this first movie, Heather Langenkamp, Nancy Thompson. She's having, her friend Tina,
Mhm.
which is played by Amanda Wiss. You said you had a story about her in just a second. We're going to get
Yeah.
to that in just a moment because I want to hear this. Tina is having nightmares and she's having trouble sleeping. The show kind of opens up really
with her, yeah.
So you kind of feel, in a sense, like this movie might be central around her, whereas it's really not, as you see as it goes on and progresses. But you go to find out a few minutes into the movie that it's not just Tina having these nightmares. Nancy is having bad dreams, although she's not really talking about it, and so are the two guys, which is Tina's boyfriend, Rod, and then Johnny's Depp's character, Glenn. They don't really mention it. The guys don't for the longest. Finally, you get Rod Lane, which is Tina's boyfriend, talking about it after he gets arrested for what they think is the murder of Tina, because Tina ends up dying eventually in her dream to Freddy, and Rod was the only one with her. But the strange thing comes out is all of them are dreaming about the same guy. And when they realize it, it kind of gets to Nancy a little bit, and she's like, "How's that possible? We're dreaming about the same man. Little knives for fingers on his glove, and a dirty brown hat, and an ugly red and green sweater, and he's horribly burned." And when they have this talk, you see Johnny Depp's eyes kind of get big for a second, like he's like, "No way," and then he kind of plays it off like it's just a bad dream or something. The Tina character still continues through for a little bit as well. I mean, you see that it's like Freddy is taunting Nancy with the body several times throughout the movie. This also gives you the feel, if you've ever had this feeling, had a nightmare, like, there's always that feeling that you can't run fast enough.
Right.
Like you just won't pick up off the ground and go. They're weighted down. But you can run, but it's like you're the football player pulling the sled or pushing the sled or something. Either way, either direction, something's weighing you back, but you got just enough to move and get going, just enough to stay ahead. And the part in the movie where Freddy has his arms out to both sides, real long, like he's blocking the alleyway, gives you the feel like you've got nowhere to go. You can't run. You can't get by me. I'm going to get you. The thought process that Wes Craven put into this movie was something else. I mean, it was nothing less than brilliant what he's done with it, because it was a good scary movie, and they didn't get real cheesy in this one, or
all the one-liners and stuff.
The one-liners, they those kind of come later. 3 kind of picks them up a little bit, but in good, I don't say good taste, but in fun fashion, fashion. But then you get in Elm Street 4 and 5, and they start getting a little ridiculous at that point. Kind of humorous though.
Oh yeah, but definitely became more of a comedy than a horror movie.
Yeah, it kind of felt that way. What's the story about Amanda Wyss that you have though?
So of course we covered this last October, and so first of all, I'll say I had called her Amanda Wyss on our episode, and then when I did my interview with Diane Franklin, who was with her in Better Off Dead, she mentioned her name was Amanda Wyss, and I was like, "Oh, I got to remember that I said her name wrong." So, but I'm doing a thing,
which is hilarious for y'all to know. All right, full disclosure, I was saying Amanda Wyss the whole time, and he corrected me earlier, which I'm so glad he did.
Yeah, we help each other out. That's what we do. So I've been, of course, I'm promoting different episodes this month, and of course it's all Halloween. So I've done a thing like a Do You Know on my social media, where I'll take a piece of trivia, something that either we covered on the podcast or something we didn't get to, and I'll make a little picture. And so one of the stories was that after the movie came out, the following Halloween, Amanda had mentioned that she was at home with trick-or-treaters, and she noticed a bunch of kids were coming dressed as Freddy. And so eventually she told one of the kids, "Hey, I was in that movie. I played Tina." And the kid didn't believe her. And I thought that was a really cool little story. And so I had posted, I was like, "Wait, I think I'm following her on Twitter." I was like, "I'll just send her a message on Twitter, say, 'Hey, Amanda, can you confirm, is this fact or fiction?'" And she responded within 30 minutes, said, "It's all true." So that just happened like today, like a few hours ago. So really cool that she reached out and confirmed that was a real story. Because I was like, you read stuff on the internet, it's like, is somebody just throwing stuff on IMDb or Wikipedia just to be funny, or was that a real legit story? So she did confirm that a kid that trick-or-treated in 1985 did not believe that she was in the movie. Of course, he was probably too young to see the movie. He had just, liked the Freddy costume probably.
Probably, and you know what? I mean, I highly doubt she's listening to this show, but if she is, thank you so much for
Yes.
responding like that. You have no idea how cool it is for somebody who has been in a movie, a TV show, a musician, whatever, to take the time to respond to you, even in a simple way, with
Yeah.
a yes, no, absolutely true, whatever. If
Hmm.
they give you a long, drawn out paragraph of their time, and then thank you for messaging them or whatever, great on them. But at least responding, that is awesome.
Awesome.
I
Yep.
wish, I wish, I wish a lot of them, a lot more of them were like that. Although I do understand the want for privacy and everything
Oh
too,
yeah.
so I
Oh
don't,
yeah.
I don't condemn them for it in any way.
Hmm.
But that's great of her that she did do something like that. Um, the I'm just picturing the little kids dressed as Freddy coming to the door,
Yeah.
little fake claw on the hand.
Right. Exactly. Look, I remember when those that was like the toy to have, man, back in the
Yeah,
mid '80s, and of course my parents would not let us have that. But there was always one of the kids in the street, one of the kids at school that had it and snuck it into school or snuck it behind somebody's house where you kind of played with it or whatever. And of course, it was cheap plastic. It wasn't going to hurt anybody, but it was just the idea of it. I think you had to. That might have been back when you could only get that at like Spencer Gifts, in the mall, which
yeah.
was, it was all. Your parents were like, "We'll go. You can go in there, but we have to go in with you because there's certain parts of that store you cannot
Don't
you
get to the
cannot go
back of the
to."
store.
Yeah, it's like the further back you go, the darker it gets, and the darker
Yes,
the more adult the merchandise becomes.
yes, yes. Of course, the employees working there don't care if you go to the
No.
back. Don't let mom and dad catch you going back here, though.
Right, exactly.
They'll be laughing about what they seen later, but they'll be whipping you for looking at it.
I learned a lot in that store that I probably shouldn't have learned at the age I learned in. But anyway.
I think we all did. Wow. The movie itself, when it comes to the first Elm Street, release date
Hmm.
was November 16th of '84. The movie budgeted estimated $1.8 million. That's not a lot of money if you think
No,
about it.
no.
Making a movie, even then, I don't think that was a lot of money to make a movie. Now, I don't know what type of money they'd put into special effects. If it was more, I think it's more just makeup than
Yeah,
anything
yeah.
when it comes to Freddy. And the rest of it's just cheap special effects with the bodies with some blood or maybe some reverse technology with the camera or something with the blood gushing from the bed up to the ceiling versus
Hmm.
top going down or something. They did use some of that camera motion they used in Breaking, where you see like where Turbo was dancing on the wall and the ceiling, where they
Yeah.
pulled Tina's character up the wall to the ceiling and everything. That was put in place. The movie was an hour and 31 minutes long, but do you know how much money? Well, you got IMDb up. You've probably looked at it already. How much money this grossed worldwide?
25 million and some
$25 million. I
change.
mean,
Yeah.
and some change. If I just had to change, I'd be pretty good.
I feel exactly, exactly.
25 million plus. That is great. Opening weekend, 1.27 million.
Yeah. You
You
keep
know,
the 25 million. I'll take the 685,000 and we'll call it even.
I'm not going to complain about that if they were to offer it to me. I mean, I really wouldn't. So, man, during the movie itself, though, it gives you the thing that made it one of the things so great was it gives you the creeps because it's in your dreams, and when
Yeah.
you're having a
Yeah.
nightmare, you waking up yourself as a kid, maybe even an adult at one point in time, you jump awake from the dream that you just had, and if it takes you a second or two to realize you're not dreaming anymore, you're awake, but the helplessness that you feel from being in the,
Hmm.
it's like you can't do anything to help yourself, and that's what makes this movie, to me, very unique and scary when it came out in 1984.
Oh yeah. I mean, Wes Craven was definitely, I mean, you'd had the slashers. I mean, by that point you'd had Michael Myers with Halloween, you'd had the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you'd had Jason Voorhees. So that type of kind of monster serial killer was pretty well established. So Craven was very smart to throw, um, to look at a different perspective of what is, yeah, it's scary to be chased by a serial killer, but yeah, the dreams is like even more so because it's like everybody's had that dream, like you said, where you're trying to run away or you're trying to get to something you can't And of course, you wake up and you're like, oh gosh, thank God it was just a dreamer. I mean, just a dream. But for this to come out and be like, well, what if you couldn't get out? What if? And I know it was based on a real syndrome that happened overseas, and I don't have it right in front of me to go over it, but it was based on where these villagers would have these horrible nightmares, and eventually, and actually would die in their sleep, not because, and also basically because of trauma or so much fear in their sleep that it caused them to pass away, their heart to stop. So
Right, I've actually got it right.
That's kind of
right
scary. That's kind of scary too, that it's based on something that's real.
It's called SUDS, sudden unexpected death syndrome, and Brugada syndrome. It says.
Yeah.
Medical authorities have since called the phenomenon Asian death syndrome, a variant of sudden unexpected death syndrome, and Brugada syndrome. But yeah, you're right though. It says Wes Craven first came up with the basic idea for the movie from a series of articles in the LA Times over a 3-year period. A group of Southeast Asian refugees from the Hmong tribe, several of whom died in throes of horrific nightmares. The group had come to the U.S. to escape the murderous reign of Pol Pot, I guess that's how you say it, and within a year of arriving, the 3 men all died in similar situations. They're young, otherwise healthy men. They would have nightmares. Then they would refuse to sleep as long as they could. The nightmares were so bad. And when they finally fell asleep from exhaustion, one of them woke screaming and then died. Autopsy results revealed that he had not died from heart failure, but had just simply died. It was an inability to find a cause of death that intrigued Craven so much. So, and there was something about also somebody that had peeped in his window as a child.
Yeah, and freaked him out. Yeah,
it freaked him out, and that's where you got the vision of Freddy Krueger. That person had on a hat, I guess, like that.
Yeah.
And was peeking in through his window, and that scared him as a kid.
So he put a lot of life, or not life experiences, but a lot of things from his past. He kind of used to kind of solidify the story, or add elements of the story, like the creepy sweater, the fedora. He knew somebody named Fred Krueger, which is why I used the name. And ruined the name Krueger for every person that had that name.
Yeah. That just reminded me of something else I heard recently. But yeah, you're right. It must suck to be someone named Fred Krueger these days. Anyway, I mean, Heather Langenkamp, she beat over 200 actresses for the role of Nancy. Among them that tried out were Jennifer Grey, Demi Moore, Courtney Cox, Tracy Gold, and Claudia Wells. I mean, I could actually see, of the ones listed there, Claudia Wells, I think, would have fit well in it at the time for her look she had in Back to the Future.
Right.
Demi Moore, if you're going with the Demi Moore from the Brat Pack look, she actually shows this fire and everything. Jennifer Grey, I can't see so much playing Nancy. Courtney Cox, I can't really see playing Nancy. And Tracy Gold, I'm so used to seeing her, being Carol Seaver. I can't picture her in anything else.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to think of them in that role. I guess Courtney Cox, kind of, only because from the Scream movies, I can kind of see her in a horror movie. But Demi Moore would be good. Claudia Wells would be good. Yeah, Jennifer Grey and Tracy Gold, definitely not. I think even with Claudia Wells, I think she would have to go with a darker hair color, so that, even though Tina's not, Amanda Wiss's character is not in it very long, you wouldn't want them to look too similar, which I think they might.
Yeah, and it's not that I don't think Courtney Cox could do horror. It's just that during that time frame, I guess because I'm comparing her to Heather Langenkamp's Nancy with the longer hair. I don't remember Courtney Cox having longer hair at that point. I believe, because I'm remembering the Bruce Springsteen video.
Yeah,
Mark.
I think she did when she was on Family Ties. She had a little bit of run on Family Ties before around the same time of the Springsteen video. So
I completely forgot about that. Shoulder length hair, basically. A little bit longer shoulder length hair. Yeah. Well, that's a good point. I completely left her out of that and forgot about that. No doubt. The thing I mentioned earlier about him in the alleyway holding his arms out, I'm reading here they had elongated his arms by having fishing poles on each side of the Freddy instead of puppet arms that were attached to him.
Yeah,
Crazy.
the practical effects in these movies are really good. I know we talked about this, and so the last episode I did was on American Werewolf in London, which has fantastic special effects, Academy Award winning makeup and special effects. And then we're doing a bonus. I'm doing a bonus episode on the movie House from '86. That but
I love that.
yeah, but pretty much any '80s horror movies, a lot of practical effects, more so than what we see now, of course. So you know that's what I think. That's why '80s horror movies are kind of tough to beat for me, because the practical effects, even though it's fake,
Hmm.
there's just such artistry in it. And there's so much thought and creativeness in those effects. Even the stuff like even watching the third one, where of course they had more money, they had bigger budget, they were able to do more things. In that one, it was still really cool to see. Oh, well, they didn't just there's still some cartoony parts in the third one, some of the special effects, but some of the other stuff that you can tell it's practical. It's like they really went for it. They made it look as real as possible, which, especially at that time, was really scary. Of course, now it's a little bit more cheesy, but I still appreciate the artistry. I appreciate the creativeness of the practical effects, and even with, like I said, with Freddy's makeup, I think in the first one where she pulls his face off and it's kind of like the skeleton. Like, I mean, that still works and it still has an effect. May not be as scary as it was in '84, but it still has a gruesome effect to it.
Right. Right. Now, I was talking recently. Guest I had on the show, Mark Anthony Austin, I believe his name was. He, matter of fact, let me just double check his name here. Mark Anthony Austin, that's correct. I didn't want to get his name wrong.
Yeah, let's not do that.
Special effects artist.
Okay.
And he got to play Boba Fett in
Oh,
the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
97 remake thing of the Star Wars New Hope, the re-release of.
Mhm.
But the special effects portion I brought up with him, and I said, compared to what it was back when you were doing things in the in the 90s and even maybe a little bit before, how do you feel, or how do you like it compared to nothing but a lot of green screen, blue screen stuff today? And he had made very good mention of how he although how he can appreciate what things have evolved to today, there's something about the older way of doing things that made the movie feel more fun to you.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's exactly what I thought was a great answer. I completely agree with him on that. Even if when you watch the making of Star Wars and they're showing this big set that's been built of toy-sized things flying across there, but you're seeing the same scene in a movie and it feels like they're in space with what they've done to it.
Right.
It's awesome and amazing. Same thing with this right here, and how they take some of the simpler things and make it awesome and great. When it gets to the point in the movie where now you've lost Tina, you've lost Rod in the jail. It looks like he's hung himself, but it was really Freddy that got him in the jail. Nancy is being taken by her mother to go get help. Her mother's character almost cracks me up at times. It's like toward the end of the movie when Nancy comes home at one point and her mother's going to tell her about Freddy finally. The character steps out from the kitchen, it looks like, and she just steps out, has a cigarette in her hand, takes this dramatic pause and lifts it up and flicks the lighter and lights a cigarette like it's an Emmy-winning spot in the movie that she's got to get this right. And then she goes, "Come downstairs with me and I'm going to tell you about him." Like it's so dramatic, lighting the cigarette and tell her to come on down. Let's go talk about him. But before that part, takes her to the sleep clinic to get looked at.
Right.
That's what I'm going to call it, the sleep clinic.
That works.
Doctor's checking her out. He's explaining to her mom, she's going to sleep in there. This is what it looks like on her readings. It never really goes above this number of 6 or 10 or something like that. Next thing you know, it's reading 30, 35, 40, 50. He don't understand what's going on. She's violently jumping around in her bed and flopping around. They go in there and wake her up, and she comes out with the fedora in her hand. She took the hat straight off his head.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Her dream. just as she had burned her arm in a
Mm-hmm.
previous dream while she was in school in class and
Right.
come out with the injury. She's got a cut on her arm as well. And the mom wants to know how the cut got there. Better yet, how do I have this hat in my hand?
Mm-hmm.
She knows who he is. She can get to him. She can pull him out. So she devises a plan to go ahead and pull him out of the dream and wants her boyfriend, Glenn, to help her. When she
Right.
pulls him out, for him to be out there out the front door in the front yard, be ready to whack him with a bat or something. They're going to take him out. They're going to kill him. They're going to end this. Little does she know that Glenn gets gotten first. Freddy
Right.
gets him.
Right.
Uh, cool little scene between him and his mother before he gets killed
Right.
by Freddy. Though she comes in there and wakes him up, and it's close to 12. He knows he's supposed to be awake. He fell asleep watching TV. Those
Mm-hmm.
for Nancy at a certain time, but she's telling him he needs to go on to sleep. And she says, "How can you listen to your records and watch television at the same time?" And he says, "Oh, I'm not really, just watching the tube. I'm listening to the records." And he goes, "Miss Nude America is going to be on TV tonight." And she goes, "Oh, yeah, what does she have to say?" He goes, "Who cares? Don't be a smart aleck. Go to
Mm-hmm.
sleep." Um, it's little things like that, it gives you a more of a good feeling toward the character. You feel more for the character when you see he's getting killed. Him and his mother just had this moment, basically, that would have been normally remembered from that point forward. Probably as something funny he'd said in the past and done. They seem like they have a good relationship.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
The father doesn't care for Nancy too much. He thinks she's crazy and he wants her to stay away from the kid. But then he ends up getting pulled through the bed. And so
Right.
you don't know what he's dreaming. It doesn't show you anything he's dreaming. Just suddenly a claw comes up and pulls him down into the middle of the bed, and blood just gushes up everywhere. And
Mm-hmm.
it's crazy. Uh, so the father comes over. Her father gets called up with the police. They check things out, and we're practically at the end of the movie now. She's determined she's going to end it all now. She's going to go in and pull Freddy out. She tells the cop across the street, or she tells her father on the phone, just
Mm-hmm.
just listen for me. When I call for you, I need you to come over here. I'm going to get him. And she tells him it's Freddy again. It's Freddy Krueger, and he just doesn't want to believe it because he's supposed to be dead in all
Right.
reality.
Right.
So when she has her dream, you think at first maybe she's failed with it, and he hasn't come out. But she did pull him out. She's got all
Mm-hmm.
kinds of booby traps set up in the house. She's
Yeah.
suddenly gone survivalist
Yeah.
on this here. I mean,
Home Alone before
expert.
Home Alone.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. Ex- Expert at making booby traps in the house. Yes.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
you know, all we're needing was paint cans coming down from the stairwell, finally hitting Freddy in the face, or a giant bar swinging on two ropes or something.
Mm-hmm.
But she does fairly well against him when she brings him out, and he's back. He's into reality with her. You think that she's got him at this point because she has him trapped in the basement and had lit him on fire, and he's burning to death yet again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So finally, the father makes his way over there, and you come to find out that Freddy now has, before they could get someone down there, has come up and gone to the kitchen and back around and up the stairs. There's footing all through there where, and this is some of that good special effects we're talking about in a sense, because it's realistic feeling where you see the individual steps he's taken. Those steps are on fire because he was on fire,
Mm-hmm.
going all
Mm-hmm.
the way up the steps, and they get up there and he's basically attacking the mother, and the
Right.
father sees it at this point. So the father sees what's going on. He covers them up because they're on fire. The fire goes out, but all you see when he takes the blanket back off is the mother's skeletal like body going into some mystic looking background into the
Mm-hmm.
bed, and it's just a whole bed. So I feel like I've skipped something I wanted to bring up a while ago. I can't think of what it is, but it must not be that important, I guess. Nancy tells her father that she'll be down in a minute, that she's okay, and turns her back to the bed. And Freddy starts coming up through the bed. It looks, he's coming back for her.
Mm-hmm.
So she does what her boyfriend Glenn had told her to do. you turn your back on them. You tell them, that they're not real and everything. And this is what she does. Basically, she rejects him. She takes away any bit of energy she's ever given him. She
Mm-hmm.
wants her mother back. She wants her friends back. And he looks like he's scared for a moment, like he don't know what's going on. And when he goes to get her, he just disappears into nothing. And she
Mm-hmm.
turns back on him. Now, here is what I want to know. I want to get your opinion on.
Okay.
It looks like when she goes at the bedroom door, now she's going out the front door.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The mother is with her now.
Right.
All right. Glenn is pulling up in a convertible. Rod
Mm-hmm.
and Tina are in the back seat. Did she get what she wanted out of it the whole time and say, oh, she wanted her mother and friends back? Or when she went to the bedroom door, now she's out the front door. Is she realistically still sleeping and dreaming all this? Is she dreaming that she pulled him out and killed him and got what she wanted? Because they never really tell you at the end of it.
They don't.
That's the cliffhanger.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, was it real at the end? Was it
Mm-hmm.
fake? Is the mother still really dead? Because a person don't just get pulled through the window of a door.
Right. Right.
That's the way it looked. So, and then the car itself looks like it's Freddy
Yeah.
himself.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
The drop top goes down and it's a red and green stripe like the sweater. I mean, and as it's going down, you see the little kids doing the jump rope song.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, what was your thoughts on how it ended exactly? Do you think it was still all a nightmare?
I think it's meant to be ambiguous, and yeah, let's go back to 1984 because we know because we've seen the third one that Nancy comes back, so she had to have defeated him.
Mm-hmm.
So then it's like it was a dream, but it's I don't know, it's hard to explain because there is no logic. There's no real logic here. But I mean, I would say, yeah, I think I want to say that she won. And I was trying to go back and find it, but I really want to say, because it's been a year since we did this episode, but I'm pretty sure that Craven did not want that ending. Like that was the studio wanted that last scare before the credits roll. And so they filmed that as kind of like a throwaway of the mother being pulled through the door. Like he wanted them to leave and it be over, like it be a happy ending. And the studio's like, no, we need one more scare. And so they added, made the convertible look like Freddy, and then the mom being pulled, which, her being pulled through the door like a doll, which was obviously a doll, is probably one of my favorite, like funny, but not supposed to be funny moments in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
it almost feels like, in a sense, that let's just say that it was still a dream going on. In the third one that you mentioned, she's back in, which we're about to jump on here in just a second.
Yeah.
She talks about to the doctor in it how she herself dealt with nightmares and that she had lost her mother and all of this stuff. So I'm thinking that maybe what happened was this was still a dream, that her mom died in the dream. And, once you die in the dream, you die.
Right.
And when she does wake up, her mom is dead. She is in a strange relationship with her father now. He's really set back after all of this. She goes on to do what she goes on to do, I guess, with college and stuff. The dreams leave her. She gets the sleep medication issued to her, where she doesn't have any issues or anything, and she hasn't in a long time. I'm thinking maybe that's kind of how it worked out. If in my head I'm working out what happened, to me that feels like the best exclamation in my mind.
Yeah.
And it's just not guaranteed that would be it. There was a thing going on with the glove, the original glove. It made an appearance back in part 2, and Wes Craven loaned it out for 3, but it disappeared after part 3, they said. And it's rumored that Robert Englund's agent was down in possession of it and has it.
That was kind of like, that was kind of the original mask for Michael Myers. Like it got lost between either 1 and 2 or 2 and 3, and because back then I think maybe it was when 1 and 2 because they weren't they didn't think they were going to make a sequel because it was a cheaply made movie. I think it was the jumpsuit and the mask, and like it's like one of the crew members had it in a duffel bag, and he would like wear it, for like birthday parties or something, something crazy like that. And they had to. I think they eventually got it back, but I think for the second one they had to get a different mask until they found out that the one crew member had the original one.
The one thing I'm glad they didn't do, I'm reading right here, Freddy
Mm-hmm.
Krueger was designed by Wes Craven to be the typical silent serial killer, such as Jason Voorhees or Michael Myers.
Mm-hmm.
However, in the sequels, Freddy developed a cheeky persona that enabled him to be the black humored villain. In the
Right.
first movie, he's just he's just trying to be scary. I mean, he's not trying to be
Yeah.
funny.
Right.
Even at the point where he's looking at Tina early on, he goes, "Hey Tina, watch this," and he takes the
Mm-hmm.
knife, he
Oh
cuts
yeah.
off the
Yeah.
top of two of his fingers and squirts out stuff. It's
Mm-hmm.
disgusting. Or at one point, he sees Nancy and he cuts his side a little bit and stuff
Mm-hmm.
spills out of his side where his ribs are. It's not meant to be funny. It's just he's meant to be scaring them and driving them crazy.
Yeah.
Uh, whatever he can do to get a scare out of them is what he's doing
Yeah. It's
until you
funny.
get later on where the little cheeky comments come in.
Yeah. I think it's funny to go back and watch that one now because of the later ones. We're so used to him being the one-liners and being more campy with it that some of the
Mhm.
lines you can kind of take both ways. Like I think it's the scene where she answers the phone and then the tongue comes to the phone and he's
Yes.
like, "I'm your boyfriend now," and it's like that was probably
Yes.
meant to be very scary, but like now it's like it could be like he's making a joke or he's
Right.
really threatening her. So it kind of it can go both ways.
It can be very humorous if used in the right ways too,
Right.
because in this past couple of years, um, definitely not to get sidetracked on this because it's political and we don't really do political.
No, let's not do
But
that.
I did see a little video meme where they were poking fun of the current president, and because they would say that there was all these talks out there that he was always sniffing women's hair and stuff and
Right, right.
all these things. Well, the little video clip of Elm Street of her answering the phone and saying "I'm your boyfriend now," and the tongue comes out.
Hmm.
It goes to a quick shot. I think it was of Joe Biden on the phone talking to somebody, which I thought. I mean, it was funny for what it was, the way they
Hmm.
made it. But I'm thinking, oh, I haven't seen that movie in a long time. Was my first thought. I
Right.
haven't seen that movie in a while. That was creative. But yes, I mean, to think, and that's also how she knows he's got to Glenn.
Yeah,
He's,
exactly.
he's telling he's telling her, "I'm your boyfriend now,"
Hmm. Hmm.
but it's not quite as cheesy and campy as when you get to Elm Street 4 or or was it 5 with the pizza at the diner.
Oh, I don't remember. I haven't rewatched 4 and 5. Those are
Yeah,
definitely haven't
there's
seen those in a long time.
there's like big bits of sausage or meatballs or
Yeah,
something
I
on
know
the
I know the
pizza.
scene you're talking about, but I don't remember which one it was in. Because I'm like you, like night. This is well documented in my podcast. I was not a big horror fan in the 80s. I didn't really get into horror until the 90s. So, and that was when Freddy, like the early 90s, was really Freddy's reign. I think it was when 4 and 5 came out. So I watched those before I went back and saw the first one. So I was a big Freddy fan more so than the Jason and Michael Myers because I hadn't seen those movies when they came out. Um, so yes, I've seen all of them, but it's been a long time since I watched them.
So one more thing about this movie, and I'm going to jump to 3.
Okay.
I'm reading a movie bit here that was supposed to happen, but it was cut.
Hmm.
Johnny Depp's character Glenn was supposed to rise from the bed after
Yeah.
the bed scene, but it was cut. Do
Hmm.
you think that would have made a stronger part for the movie if that had happened, or the way it happened? Is it perfectly fine the way they left it?
I think it's fine the way they left it because they did Tina's death where she's kind of on the ceiling, so it would have been a
Mhm.
little bit redundant
Yeah.
to do it that way. I know I remember reading that clip, and they obviously must have filmed that scene because every once in a while, like I like to go back and try to find like behind the scenes photos from sets, And I've seen a picture of Johnny Depp like covered in blood sitting on the edge of the bed. So I'm assuming that that's a shot from when they filmed that part of it that never made it into the movie. So it would have been interesting, but I think what it was terrifying enough. I mean, being sucked into your bed. I'm sure there were
Yeah.
plenty there were plenty of kids, teenagers that slept on the couch after seeing this movie because they didn't want to be sucked into their bed, especially with a little TV, on the bed with them. So
Right. So we jump up here to 3 now, Dream Warriors.
Okay.
Skipping past 2 because Nancy's not really in it. So we
Right.
got Heather Langenkamp. We got Robert Englund again reprising Freddy Krueger.
Mm-hmm.
We got Craig. I'm gonna assume it's Wasson, Wasson, that plays Neil Gordon, the Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Patricia Arquette is Kristen Parker.
Right.
Ken Sangos is Kincaid. Rodney Eastman is Joey. Jennifer Rubin is Taryn. Bradley Gregg is Philip.
Mm-hmm.
And Lawrence Fishburne was in this movie
as Larry Fishburne. Yeah,
as Larry Fishburne playing Max, one of the orderlies there. We get a brief appearance from John Saxon playing Lieutenant Thompson again, because they get him later to try and find out where the bones to the body is and everything. And if you hear that dog in the background, I'm sorry, I'm about to go muzzle that thing. She is killing me. This is the second episode she's done this. Normally she's quiet, but
doesn't take much.
I mean, look, she's a little yapper dog. That's what they do. They yap. The movie brings on another story now, the extended story, we should say, for Nancy, but new light on Freddy Krueger. There is a nun that keeps presenting herself.
Right.
That we'll say throughout the movie, to where the Doctor, Neil Gordon, keeps seeing her. And her name is Sister Mary Helena. And she has given him tidbits of information, like the only way to save the kids is to put the evil spirit at rest. And this is where he's done met Nancy. She's come in. He's trying to take in all this stuff that she's saying and making sense of it, making heads or tails out of it, because it doesn't make sense in a doctor's mind that anything outside of a dream is dangerous, because your dreams are there for you to help you expel things from daily life. That's why they say sleep is so important for you. Your body gets rest. You get into a dream state. You dream things, and to not go deep into that or anything, because I definitely cannot talk intelligently on that.
Me either.
But that's basically what they say. That dreaming is healthy for you.
Right.
So Nancy, for the last 6 years, has gone and got herself a degree of some sort in working with dreams. And they have brought her into this place where the kids are having trouble. And just so happens that Kristen Parker has been taken to this place where she's been having dreams. And it looks like she tried to commit suicide by cutting her wrist, when in her dream, Freddy had slashed her in the bathroom.
Right.
She is there freaking out. They're trying to sedate her, and she's just crying. She's got a hold of a blade. She has already cut, Max's arms. He's trying to, take her and calm her down. And she starts quoting the jump rope rhyme. And as she gets to the end of it and can't finish it, Nancy walks in and finishes it for her and asks her, where did she hear that rhyme? So the girl calms down immediately, because she feels a sense of trust with her right off the bat, because she knows the nursery rhyme somehow. They go on to have group sessions together along the way. One of the kids, which was Philip, played by Bradley Gregg, ends up dying at that point. It looks like he's sleepwalking, when really and truly Freddy has him in a nightmare, and he's treating him like a marionette, like he's created himself and hanging from his ceiling. Freddy comes from one of the marionettes that he's created after him from his dream. How he remembers him and all. So they're having a group session about what happened to him, and she is wanting the doctor to maybe prescribe Hypnosil, which is the drug they've got her on, to prevent them from dreaming, till they can get a grip on what's going on and figure things out. And when she finally breaks it out to them that she knows what they're dreaming about, none of them want to believe her. This might even be, no, I think this is before the part of what happened to, to Joey when he's strapped to the bed. Um, she describes Freddy Krueger to him to a T, and they
Mm-hmm.
don't understand what's going on. And she explains to them that they are the last of the Elm Street kids, along
Mm-hmm.
with her. We are the last of the Elm Street kids. We're paying for the sins of our parents who trapped him down in a boiler room where he would take his victims and they burned him alive and killed him. So he's taking it out on the children, basically. Which makes you wonder at that point when you've only seen up to three, what happens when all the Elm Street children are dead? How's he going to go from there? Which they, obviously that's a story down the road for a different thing because that goes into Elm Street 4 where they explain all that. But you've got in this, the kids themselves have their own little sleep powers, basically. Now, this didn't happen in the first one with Nancy. And I don't know where they had the idea of bringing this about. What did you think about the fact that each one of them has a special power within their dream that they can use, that they have brought out to defend themselves in it?
Mm-hmm.
It seems silly to you in a way, or does it make sense? Have a good like have a good feel to it in any way?
I mean, it's definitely an interesting story, or plot point. It's, you know, fruitless. I mean, you kind of knew that it wasn't going to
Yep.
work, but
Right.
it made for interesting segments. You know what I'm saying? Like they all had their little their dream power, what they said. I was like, you knew that wasn't going to work because we've seen what Freddy can do, but from their perspective, because they didn't really know what he could do or what his power was, um, it gave them some confidence, which I think is a little bit better than them just being completely terrified all the time. It did add a new element in that aspect of it. So, um, I mean, I think it worked for the story. I mean, we didn't talk about two, and two was so terrible. Three seems like a masterpiece after after two. So
Right.
so better decisions were made for sure. Which I don't. I know Wes Craven was one of the writers on this one. I don't think he was as involved in the second one. So definitely had more of his style and his storytelling in it for sure.
Well, for the writers, you had Wes Craven, story and screenplay and characters.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce Wagner did some for story and screenplay, and Frank Darabont did screenplay. Chuck Russell was a director. That's how you have this set up.
Mm-hmm.
Wes Craven did have his hand in it as far as writing some of the stuff for it and all,
Yeah.
but I don't think it was 100% his baby in this one.
No, but I'm just saying I think he was the more involved in this one than he was in the second one. The second one definitely felt more like a cash grab sequel that really
Yeah,
didn't have a real story to tell. It just wanted to rehash what they did in the first one. I mean,
but
it did have somewhat of it tried to make a different story, but it wasn't as strong as this one for sure.
I think the purpose of part two, and I've never read anything like this to say this, so don't take this to be legit or true. It's my opinion.
Hmm.
But I think they used part two in a sense that they were going to go further down the line with it, maybe just to three for a trilogy, or
Hmm.
maybe even beyond it. I don't know. But when they're talking about the second one, it's called Freddy's Revenge.
Hmm.
All right, so you brought him back now, and this is his revenge on the neighborhood to get back in again. And
Hmm.
this reintroduces him back. So now you can bring him back for a third one now because he's not dead and gone, what they insinuate in the first one.
Right. Right.
So that may or may not be what happened. The nun once again is giving ideas to the doctor how to get rid of Freddy. He has basically been canned along with Nancy at this point.
Yep. Yep.
So she's telling him what Freddy's about, what brought him about, how he became what he was, how Sister Mary, how a young nun had been, you know, taken by 100 inmates, 100 of the worst inmates, and abused. Basically, we'll say, and that left in creation the baby she had, which was Freddy Krueger. The bones had to be put at rest. This is
Mm-hmm.
what it takes. So to find out where the bones are, they have to go to Nancy's father, the only man left alive that knows where they are.
Right. Right.
Uh, they have a bad kind of a reunion, you might say. Wasn't exactly the best, but the doctor reintroduces himself to him and kind of forces his hand, and says, "We're going to go take care of this because you may not care what happens to Nancy and these kids, but I do, and we're going to go fix this." So they end up going to where the bones are, while Nancy goes to help with Kristen, who's been put in the quiet room for the night. They've sedated her. She's going to go under. She's probably going to get killed. So they're going to go in and they're going to help her, best that they can. She's going to bring them in, and they're all going to be asleep and ready and waiting. And they all got their dream powers. They're bad. Kincaid can bend a chair. Ooh.
Right. Yeah.
You got Will, who is the sorcerer supreme, or
The wizard.
something.
Yeah. The grand wizard.
The grand wizard, which is probably a bad name to call himself.
Probably not.
Too.
Yeah. Very, very, very bad.
Yeah, probably not the best of the names to choose. You got who's left over with them? You got Taryn, who is not only beautiful but she's bad. She
Right.
sticks two
Yeah.
switchblades. Of all the ones that got killed in there, it was. I have trouble determining which I thought was the cooler one of the two. Jennifer Rubin's character, which was Taryn,
Mm-hmm.
or Will, played by Ira Hayden. Will, which was the wizard, will say, has this mean looking wheelchair coming after him because he's in a wheelchair.
Right. Right.
And so Freddy sends it back after him again. He tells him, something about you might be up now, but in the end, it's back in the saddle again. And since it's sitting after him one more time, so he destroys it as a wizard in his dream. The chair's in pieces. So now he's excited and he thinks he's going to kill him once and for all. And he makes the same announcement that he does in his Dungeons and Dragons game. And he takes off with the green lightning stuff coming from his hands, thinks he's got him killed, and he picks him up as soon as he gets there. And he tells him, "Sorry, kid, but I don't believe in fairy tales." Taryn now faces him in an alleyway that she's somewhat familiar with. And they're fighting with she's got her two knives, he's got his knives, he cuts her leg, she stabs him in the armpit. He decides he doesn't want to fight her, and he says, "Why fight? We're old friends." And he holds up his fingers, and now every finger has what looks like needles on the end of it.
Right, syringes.
Her arm, the syringes, and on her arm, these little mouths, like they're opening up, saying, "Feed me, feed me, feed me."
Right.
So he goes in and sticks them into her arm, and he's like, before he does it, he's showing her. He's like, "Let's get high."
Right. Right. What a rush!
What a rush!
Yeah.
See, he's starting these little one-liners in this one. He's got some little decent ones when he tells the girl watching TV,
prime time.
Prime time.
Yeah.
Smashes her head in the screen. But anyway, now we're down to just Kristen and Nancy and Kincaid and Joey. They go rescue Joey. And it's at the point now to where we're practically at the end of it. Freddy does disappear at one point because he feels his remains being messed with, and he shows up in the junkyard and he kills Nancy's father there. And he has taken out the doctor and knocked him out into the grave and tossed some dirt on him. And funny enough, you see a skeleton dancing in victory before it falls back.
Right.
I don't know why they did that. That was kind of easy. Looking back on it now, it's funny to see it, but I don't think it was really necessary. He could have just dropped back down and went back to where he was. They're in this hallway with nothing but mirrors, and he finally shows up in the one big one. He says, "If only there was more of me to go around." And next thing you know, there's Freddy in every mirror in the hall. And they're all getting pulled into a mirror except for Joey, who is crouched down in a corner, covering his ears. He doesn't want to hear the screaming. And, he isn't, we didn't bring this up earlier, he hasn't spoken in a long time.
Right.
Because of his dreams, nightmares, and stuff. So he jumps up and just screams, just as simply screams the word "no" as loud as he can. And all the mirrors just, they're gone, they're busted. Talk about all that bad luck. And they thought he was dead at that point. Seriously?
Yeah, that was it was like, come on, y'all, don't be that gullible.
So you think he's dead now because Nancy's like, we did it.
Mm-hmm.
He's dead. He's gone.
And she should know better at that point, right?
Right. But now they all trust her.
Right.
They
Right.
trust her on it. So next thing you know, you see some light coming down. It's her father. And he says, I've crossed over, baby. I just wanted to come back to you and say bye and tell you I'm so sorry for how I acted and didn't believe you and all this. And they're getting their father-daughter moment just to get a glove of knives in her gut.
Mm-hmm.
It's him. He's still there. That's right. He isn't going away. And he drops her and motions for the door to shut behind Kristen. Now Kristen rushes at him. He gives her a backhand fist to the ground. As he's about to go in and stab her, Nancy comes up from behind him and jabs his glove into his chest and stomach.
Mm-hmm.
By this point, the doctor has already been rolling back around and getting up. He's trying to finish what he started. He has slung the bones in the grave. He hits it with holy water a couple of times. Says what he says for it. I think it was in the name of the Father.
No, it was ashes to ashes, and
Was
then
it ashes to ashes, dust to dust?
dust.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And Freddy's now you're seeing it happening to him in the dream world area where every time it hits, there's a new spot opened up on him and lights glaring out from him until he finally just basically explodes and he's gone. So now it's over with. But Nancy's now dead, basically. So Nancy's story has finally come to an end. She's full circle. She's one of the original kids in the movie that survived, but she's come into the third one and helped a few others make it through, but she has now died herself and she's gone. At the funeral for her, the doctor sees the nun again, Sister Mary Helen. And he goes to her to tell her, to thank her for what she did and telling them. And before he can say anything to her, he gets in the corner and she's gone. He looks at the grave down there, and the grave is for Sister Mary Helena, also known as Amanda Kruger. And he's like, my God, you were his mother. And that's pretty much it for that. So the movie itself, 3 is probably my favorite of the Elm Street series. Yeah, I do like the original a lot, but 3 gets a little bit extra for me because of the little funny one-liners.
Yeah.
I do kind of like the cheesy one-liners, but like I said, when it gets further into it, where he's like, eating the pizza and he's stabbing the little meatball with a person's face on it or something, he's like the soul of the children, he's soul food is what it was eating. He was eating soul food. Or when he gets the girl in the giant roach motel and tells her, you check in and check out.
But don't check out,
Part 3, as far as the box office goes compared to the first one, it had an estimated budget of $4.5 million, grossed worldwide $44,793,222. So it almost doubled what the first one made. Not quite there, but it's close. So it was successful. It had a good soundtrack to it. It had Dokken on there doing so you got songs from Dokken, Dream Warriors, Into the Fire. I'm not gonna attempt a Mo Shapiro here and sing Dream Warriors.
No, I'm not either.
I'm not gonna go that route. Although kudos to him, every time he yells it out, more power to him. I can't do it. I just can't bring myself to it. Anything interesting about this movie that for you, I know like you said, you didn't like him at the time, but when you come back around and you started watching him, is there anything interesting to you in this movie that stands out that you like the best about it, or that you just want to bring up at all?
Well, I will say, for me, I'm still going to put the original first, only because it's the original, because it hadn't been done before. But this is a close second, and once again, I haven't gone back and watched 4, 5, 6, whatever after that in a long time. So, but I don't think they get better as they as they go along. Even the remake was terrible, because my wife and I did watch that one a couple of years ago when we watched the original one. But yeah, I think this one is great because of, even though I said it's kind of fruitless, but them trying to become a team is a good element, and that each one of the characters, you got more of the kids, and they have more, there's a little bit more backstory to them than we just had in the first 2 movies, where they all, they did have a past. There are certain things that they liked that Freddy was going to use against them. So that added a new element that I liked. I will say, you covered pretty much all of the deaths, but the one you did mention, which was the one that freaked me out probably the most as a kid, was the first one. Or not, that wasn't the first one, but maybe it was the first one. But the kid that it pulled the veins out of his arms and his feet and led him to, like, he was the puppet. He created the puppets.
We kind of touched on it a little bit. We
Yeah.
talked about. I said it's how how Freddy came out of nowhere and drew like from one of the puppets hanging from the ceiling because he had modeled one after him in his sleep. But we didn't talk a great deal about the death, just that the doctors tried to play it off as a suicide.
Right. But that, of course, now in HD TV, you can tell the special effects aren't as crisp as they would have been done today. But I just remember that as a kid, even as a teenager, and like that was kind of freaky. But the death
it was because think about how he's laying in bed. You see him take the little blade, go whoosh, 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 and next thing you know, he's got his veins pulled all the way out, and he's treating his veins like the puppeting strings.
Right.
And that's how he's guiding him. But all anybody else sees is him walking around with his hands out,
thinking he's sleepwalking. Yeah.
Yeah, but in the reality, in the dream, in his mind, it's his veins pulled out, being walked around by them, and then when he gets him hanging over the edge, and he's looking up like he don't know what's happening, and sees Freddy just go, whoosh, and he cuts it loose, and he falls off.
Yeah.
So definitely something.
So I think this one, things were thought out a lot better. Like the execution is probably a little bit better than the first one. It's still a new idea, putting things together. The concept was there, but they really expanded on it and gave Freddy a little bit more personality. Like you said, I think at that point they really said, we've had these silent, kill, like you said, you mentioned before, the silent killers that don't say anything. Now to have one that, really becomes more vocal. Of course, it became more campy, but that did give a totally new element to that, to the horror icon. So I like it. I mean, I don't really have a whole lot more to add to it, but I agree with you. This is a fun one. Of ones that I would probably want to rewatch, I would definitely want to rewatch this one more than the other sequels for sure. And it's probably the one that, like, even though I hadn't seen it in a long time, when I rewatched it today, I remembered a lot of it. And it was funny because my wife, she missed the beginning, but she was watching the last part of it, and she loves the Nightmare on Elm Street series. She has great memories of watching them with her friends when she was younger. And so she was like saying some of the lines before they even came. I was like, you've seen this way more than I have, because I knew there was a line coming, but I didn't know what it was. So she was kind of saying some of his one-liners before they got there. But it's great. I mean, I enjoyed them. They're fun. Freddy is funny and is iconic, 80s iconic for sure. But yeah.
And nobody other than Robert Englund, I don't think, could really play that role.
No. He personified that character. That, I mean, even when they did the remake, if they ever, please don't ever remake this again. I'm sure in probably 10 years they probably will, but it's kind of, Freddy's kind of become one of those characters where, unlike Jason and Michael Myers that don't speak and have the mask, it doesn't matter who's behind. It's the presence is what's frightening. But for Freddy, it's the personality too. So you'd almost have to, if they were going to remake it or reboot it, you'd have to present Freddy in a completely different way, kind of like you do with Joker in the Batman series. Like, every Joker is different. Every Joker has a different personality. You'd have to do that. That's why I think the remake didn't, well, it was just bad overall, but trying to have someone be kind of the same Freddy as before just didn't work. But it would take, once again, we don't need to remake any of these movies at this point. But yeah, I think he personified the character for sure. And same with Heather Langenkamp for Nancy. I mean, that's iconic for her as well. And I do think it's funny, like her and John Saxon both reprised their roles and both died. And I was kind of joking under my breath. It's like, they probably put in their contract, please kill me in this movie so I don't have to come back for more sequels.
They pulled a Han Solo on us, didn't they?
Right.
They pulled a Harrison Ford Han Solo bit. I don't want to do it no more. Get rid of me. Kill me. Oh man. Um, I'm looking. So this kind of got me laughing a little bit a moment ago. A funny thing about Robert Englund
Mm-hmm.
uh, says once after a tiring day on set,
Yeah, I saw that.
Robert Englund fell asleep in his dressing room, still in full Freddy makeup. When he awoke and looked in the mirror, he got a terrible scare. Oh,
Scared himself.
that is scared. It's. I wonder what if he got a crazy one-liner off of that. Wouldn't that be something? Wes Craven, you mentioned this earlier, had nothing to do with the first sequel, Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's
Right.
Revenge in 1985, as he did not believe Elm Street was capable of spawning a franchise. The success of the second film, outgrossing the original, convinced him otherwise. I think it outgrossed the original because people were expecting something great like the first one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so a lot of people went to it, but they didn't get it. But when the third one came out and you saw the previews for it, you could tell that was going to be a great one. I
Oh
think.
yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
remember watching it in the theaters when it came out, and it was definitely a real fun movie to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Nothing else really stands out to me. I mean, I'm looking at some of these little things here, little tidbits. I mean, there's
Oh
some
yeah.
nice
Yeah.
little things here. They throw shout outs to other people, Patricia Arquette and things of that nature. Robert Englund said he could tell Patricia Arquette would be a star one day. This was the
Mm-hmm.
debut for her and for the Jennifer Rubin that played Taryn as well. Their movie debuts. Um, Nothing else really stands out, so I won't go any further into that. But the franchise itself, I'll go ahead and say, because we're getting right pretty much at the end of the show here. The
Mm-hmm.
franchise itself, I thought, had the ability to go a good ways, but they were going to have to do something a little bit different, obviously, because they were the last of the Elm Street kids.
Mm-hmm.
Um, since we don't have time to go into it, I'm just going to say real quickly, if I ever go and do, and I do want to do this later sometime, I want to do Alice's story, because that was originally what I was going to do was 4 and 5 and do Alice's story,
Oh, okay.
but I changed it around to Nancy instead. So the next time I do this, it's going to be about the story of Alice, and Alice gets brought in by Kristen. Kristen's played by somebody else altogether different in Elm Street 4. It's Tuesday Weld that plays the character in that one,
Mm-hmm.
not Patricia Arquette. And she tries her best not to. Dreams are coming back around to her. She pulls in Kincaid and Joey, although they didn't want her to. And they end up finally getting killed in that along with her. And when Patricia Arquette brings in Alice, it opens up the doorway now to infinite kids. It's no longer just the Elm Street children.
Right.
So
Right.
I'll get into that on another episode one day and go from there. But Tim, man, it's been great.
Yeah,
Been a
man.
while since you've been on. It's been great talking with you again. One more time for us, if you will, for everybody that's going to listen. Get them your podcast out there where they can find you at, your social media and stuff, and let's make sure they know that.
Cool. It's the 80s Flick Flashback. You can go to our website, 80sflickflashback.com. You can find the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeart Podcast, Google Podcast, pretty much any platform that's out there. Social media is 80s Flick Flashback on Instagram, Facebook. On Twitter, it's 80. I think it's 80s _ podcast. For some reason, I don't even know how that became my Twitter handle. It's just that's what I guess 80s Flashback was already taken. That's what they gave me. I didn't realize it was that until like a month after I had it. But anyway, I'm not as active on Twitter. I'm trying to get better on that one. But on TikTok as well, 80s Flashback. But yeah, so you can go to the website. We just launched some merchandise. You can get a logo T-shirt, sweatshirt, pair of socks for Christmas, and yeah, lots of fun stuff. Trying to do some new stuff. Getting ready to close out this year. We're in season 5, so there's lots of episodes you can go back and check out. Just know that we started small, just like Chris has with this one. So not every show is perfect. We had we learn as we go. So hopefully, if you check out a season 1 episode, and if the sound isn't just right or there's a few editing mistakes, don't think every episode's like that. Just keep listening, and I think we've gotten
Things
better
always
as
get
time.
better.
Yeah, I think we've gotten better as we've gone along. We always have a lot of fun, even if it's a movie that we're not big fans of. We still find a way to find some enjoyment out of it. because it was the 80s. It was the greatest decade of movies. I know Retro Life for You goes 70s, 80s, 90s, and even the 2000s. It's like, like one of those radio stations you find out there, best of the 70s, 80s, and today.
Like Jack FM.
There you go. There you go. So, but if you just want to talk 80s, check us out.
And see, my original plan was going 80s, but I got to looking, and there was quite a few out there. This is before I'd met you.
Yeah.
I was turned on to the idea of doing it by Buzz in the Tower, which,
Mo and Max,
guys,
shout out.
They got a great show. Mo and Max, they do great. They just recently recasted Elm Street.
By the way, I listened to that episode.
I told Max, I don't see how you guys do the recasting. I can't bring myself to recast a person in a role that I love. We can take a movie and put people in it, like Travis and I, when he was here, we casted Masters of the Universe if it was done today.
Yeah.
We took that and we did that. And that was kind of fun. But I cannot sit here and say that, well, I think that Claudia Wells would have been better than Heather Langenkamp, so I'm going to cast her in that spot. And because I could never recast Freddy Krueger either. I can't bring myself to do any of that, so it's too hard for me. But everybody's got their thing. These guys do a great job with recasting and stuff, and with what they do, they get specialty types of podcasts that they do. It's not just a review.
Oh yeah.
They're great. So if anybody wants to check them out too, check out Buzz in the Tower. It's BUZZN the Tower.
Yep.
And it's great. And make sure you check out Tim as well. 80s Flick Flashback, a lot of good stuff there. For us, as usual, as you guys know, we available pretty much just as Tim is. We're on Spotify, we're on iTunes, we are on Anchor.fm, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Google Music, anywhere you're going to find a podcast you want to listen to, you should see this name on there as well. If you search it, it's going to be there and ready to go. We are on social media, mostly on Instagram at Retro Life for You, which does bleed through to Facebook with the same name. And whatever you see on Instagram, I'm going to have on Facebook as well. So whatever your preference is, reach out to us. Either way is great, but you're most likely going to have the best luck reaching me on Instagram or directly through the email at retrolifeforyou@gmail.com. If you do check out the podcast, please make sure you give us a rating and a review. If you want to throw 5 huge stars on there, that would be awesome. I would not complain at all. And believe it or not, everybody, those ratings and reviews do help us out a lot. Tim will tell you, he's been around longer than I have. A rating and a review will go far with the rankings and the way that, it gets your name out there on the search engines and everything. It shows more of an interest in your show. So they want to get it out there for others to see. So if you have time, definitely leave us a rating and a review. It'll be much appreciated. Once again, Tim, thanks for being on here with us. And everybody, I hope you enjoyed the show with Elm Street. October this year, Halloween's coming up. Make sure if you take your kids out trick-or-treating, you check that candy. Don't take them anywhere they shouldn't be going. Freddy just may be around the corner. We'll see you guys next week.